Hello and welcome to Salty About Health. My name is Dalaney and I'm here with my mom and co-host, Mary. So, Mom, why are we salty about health?
Good question. It's because both of us have had struggles, some more serious than others, and no one showed us simple ways we could jump into the driver's seat and take control.
And why are we sharing our views with our listeners?
Well, because we want our listeners to realize that it may take time, but with some simple knowledge about health, they'll be able to make a few changes and dig deeper to take control of their well being and live a more vibrant life.
That's fantastic. But right now, before we get into all of that, we just need to do some housekeeping. Here we go. This is an opinion based podcast. This is not in any way offered as a diagnosis or treatment for any disease, illness, or infirmity for physical or mental condition or any other condition you may have. We are not doctors or practitioners of any kind. Persons needing medical care should obtain it from a medical practitioner. So, consult your practitioner before making any health decision. The opinions offered here in this podcast are ours alone. Again, we're not doctors, and the banter you're going to be listening to is our view and our view alone. Okay, that's done. We, of course, also want to have an open dialogue with our listeners. So stay tuned to the end of the episode, and we'll let you know all of the ways that we can connect. Welcome, everyone. Today, in episode 33, we will be talking about triglycerides. So what are triglycerides and why is it important to know your numbers for your health? I'm assuming your triglyceride numbers. Well, by the end of the episode, you all and I will know the answers to these questions.
Yes, Delaney, triglycerides are the most common type of fat, also called a lipid, in the body. They store excess energy from your diet. So, any calories your body does not convert to energy right away are turned into triglycerides. The triglycerides then get stored in fat cells and are used as energy later. Like most fats, if you eat more calories than you burn, it could lead to high triglyceride levels. Triglycerides contain double the amount of energy as compared to both carbohydrates and proteins, which also supply energy to the body.
Okay, so right now let's just talk about the differences between triglycerides and cholesterol because I think a lot of us know about cholesterol and that's been advertised a little bit more. But so, first thing, triglycerides and cholesterol, they are both lipids that circulate in your blood. But triglycerides store the unused calories and provide your body with energy, as we mentioned before. Cholesterol, on the other hand, is used to build cells and certain hormones.
Yes. So when you go to the doctors and they order a lipid panel, it measures total cholesterol, which includes HDL, which they consider the good cholesterol, and they call it high density lipoprotein. And if you think of it as HDL, think of the H as healthy, you'll remember,
Okay, yeah.
which works to remove the LDL, which people consider bad, which is the low density lipoprotein, which if you think of the L as lethal, then you'll remember that. And that can build up in your arteries, the LDL, and cause blockage in your in blood vessels. And the whole lipid panel measures the triglyceride levels also. So it measures HDL, LDL, and triglycerides. And what they're starting to do now, which is really cool, is they're doing VLDL, which is very low density lipoproteins, which actually, once they've broken it down, because it was hard to ask and get that test. And now it seems like your grandmother and I have had blood tests done last year. They automatically do that because they think they're finding that the VLDL is really the culprit. Well, is one of the major culprits in maybe heart disease and artery disease.
Oh, okay. Well, also, they measure triglyceride levels in milligrams per deciliter. Like, how mom gives me all the sciencey things to say. So the guidelines for triglyceride levels are normal if they're less than 150 milligrams per deciliter. Borderline high is 151 to 199, and then high is 200 to 499, and then above 500 is considered very, very high.
So, why should we care about our triglyceride levels? Because high triglyceride levels can increase your risk of stroke or heart attack by thickening arteries, artery walls, and hardening arteries. Triglycerides can even cause pancreatitis, which I had no idea.
Mm.
Many times, high triglycerides go hand in hand with other medical conditions such as obesity, type 2 diabetes, hypothyroidism, and metabolic syndrome.
Yes, and being physically inactive, eating foods high in certain fats, and what, Mom?
Sugars.
And drinking too much alcohol, may also increase blood triglycerides. So the Cleveland Clinic states that refined carbohydrates are a key contributor to high triglyceride levels. So try to avoid foods made from enriched, bleached, or refined flours such as white bread, pasta, crackers, and rice. Sad face, I love rice. Also, some medicines used to treat breast cancer, high blood pressure, HIV, and other conditions can increase triglyceride levels in the blood. But if you're taking those, please talk to your doctor about it. Don't just like go, oh my gosh, I need to stop those.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to, the measurements, the milligrams per
Mm-hmm.
deciliter. I have never, knock on wood, have never had high triglycerides. So what they're finding now is when you look at your total lipid panel,
Mm-hmm.
the high triglycerides, if you have high triglycerides and high VLDL or LDL, it's a bad sign, and low
Okay.
HDL. And I have always had, I was like your grandfather. We used to have a little contest when he'd get his blood drawn. Ours were always around 36 for the triglycerides, which is very low and a good number. And then I think mine creeped up to 54, but I think it's down now. And my HDL is high, normally very high.
Okay.
So that's good. Now you have an uncle who is got higher triglycerides, much higher LDL, and low HDL. That's not a good combination. So just to, for the listeners, you're really looking at your LDL and your triglycerides, and you want your HDL to be as high as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and eating good fatty fish, omega-3s really does help with your HDL.
Well, I just re-looked at my most recent test results, even though it was a couple months ago, and my triglycerides are looking good.
What are they?
Oh, am I gonna say okay? 74.
Okay, yeah, mine, yeah, you want to work on, that is good. But
Right.
the
It could be
lower,
better,
it could be
but
lower even, and that could be, well, I don't want to say alcohol, but it,
probably, let's be honest. Alcohol and rice, like let's be honest.
there you go, the rice, and which I was really happy with this article is because they're really letting you know that processed carbs, not any, that's the worst thing for your triglycerides.
Okay.
So anyway, so
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
to continue. So
Okay.
it is also important to mention that case control studies have shown that high triglycerides are an independent cardiovascular disease risk factor. And one study concluded that in younger persons, the highest levels of triglycerides correspond with a 4 times greater risk of heart disease and stroke risk compared to similar patients in the study who had the lowest levels of triglycerides.
Okay, so let's talk about ways to help our listeners and Delaney lower their triglyceride level. The American Heart Association, AHA, recommends changes in lifestyle habits as the main therapy for high triglycerides. So, suggesting focusing on fiber rich complex carbohydrates, which my doctor did tell me, anyways, that I look like I need more fiber in my life. So, I have been working on that since February.
Oh,
uh,
good.
Such as vegetables and whole grains, low sugar fruits, which we've talked about on here, like berries, and unsweetened dairy instead of simple sugars. So, and I just Okay, so my grandmother is a very picky eater, and I just hung out with her for breakfast, and I had her do like an unsweetened Greek yogurt with some chia seeds and berries on it, and a gluten-free granola mix with like happy nuts and stuff in it, and it was a success. She liked it. She was very picky, but she ate the whole thing.
Oh, good.
So that was exciting. And for all people, whether or not they have high triglycerides, they should limit their intake of added sugars. Mom's mantra of the show. If a person has high triglycerides, it's especially important to limit daily calories from added sugars to no more than 5 to 10%, which is just no more than 100 calories for most women, which is like 100 calories is less than what's in a granola bar. It just blows my mind. It's like nothing. It's like nothing.
We're talking of added sugars.
Added sugar.
So,
Yes, yeah. So
yeah.
those added up individually, but just
Yeah.
like that's so little when you look at it. It happens so quickly. I can consume 100 calories so quickly, but then 150 calories per day for most men.
Okay, so Delaney was talking about added sugars, which do not include naturally occurring sugars such as those found in milk, which is lactose, and fruits, which is fructose. But fructose does seem to be an enemy here because there were two places that the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute mentioned that fructose raises triglycerides. So they suggest you limit fructose to 50 to 100 grams per day and limit simple sugars, especially fructose, because it raises triglyceride levels. So I don't know, but I mean, you have high fructose corn syrup, which is obviously bad, but also maybe a lot of fruit, things like that could possibly raise triglyceride levels.
And it's also suggested that alcohol in high amounts increases triglyceride levels, and individuals with very high triglycerides should abstain from alcohol.
Well, see, you don't have very high triglycerides, so you're lucky. Okay, so if you're overweight and lose weight, it will result in a 20% decrease in triglycerides. So the magnitude of decrease in triglycerides is directly related to the amount of weight loss.
That's nice because sometimes like with weight loss, you still have to deal with other issues. So it's nice that it also helps that. Like it's satisfying.
Oh, yes, yes.
Physical activity plays an important role in lowering triglycerides. So the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute suggests that you try to get at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity on 5 or more days for a total of at least 150 minutes per week. And if you, like me, are back in the office or something for work, like, you can take a walk outside of your office, like do a lap around the building, something like that on your lunch break. Especially now in the summer, right? So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's
easy
very
stuff.
important. Yeah, I've been trying to walk every day for at least 35 minutes. And I found when I went somewhere else to go hiking, and it really helps with that because you're not as exhausted going up and down hills.
Yeah.
And also, it's good to be out in different temperatures. It's good for the body to be kind of shocked like that. So
Okay.
that really helps with your health also. A lot of people will take a shower and at the very end make it really cold, and that is supposed to have a health benefit. I personally like hot water, so
Yeah, me
hard
too.
to do.
Yeah.
But just things like that. So when you do start your walking routine, as Delaney said, right now the weather is nice, at least in the part of the United States that we're in. So when it starts turning to winter or colder weather, just remember that it's actually really good for your body to get out there and stress it in different temperatures.
Yeah, and it's So my building is very, very air conditioned. So my favorite part of my day when I go home is I get into my car that's been sitting outside all day and it's really warm, and I just like don't roll the windows down or anything, and I'm just in my little solar heated car, my little oven for a little bit, and it's very nice and toasty.
I love that feeling too. I
Right?
love getting into a hot car. Your grandmother, on the other hand,
Well, it's
does
very,
not.
yeah, well, it's very specific. I love getting into a hot car after I've been in like really cold air conditioning.
Yes.
If I'm already warm, then it's terrible.
Well, that's true. But even from really cold air conditioning into a hot car,
Yep, is the
your
best.
grandmother's sitting there trying to turn on the car and flip up
Oh
the
my
air
gosh.
conditioner.
That's
Wait,
fantastic.
let me warm up. Okay. And did you realize that visceral fat is strongly associated with insulin resistance, which is an inability of the body to use insulin to convert food into energy, and high levels of triglycerides? So, visceral fat lies deep inside the abdomen and near the waistline, surrounding the abdominal organs. So, the best way to lose this fat is to lose excess weight by eating a healthy diet along with getting regular physical activity. Physical activity helps reduce abdominal fat and preserve muscle during weight loss. And I want to also note that lowering your stress level helps with losing visceral fat.
Yeah,
That's
stress.
important. So
Yeah, it
learn,
really adds to that.
yeah, learn your breathing techniques. And, like I said, we do the alternate nostril breathing, things like
Hmm.
that. There is a book now that a few of the clients have been talking about. And in fact, one of them gave me the book to read. It's called Breathe. And
Okay.
that's, kind of making its way around, and the importance of, well, actually, breathing through your nose and not, with an open mouth. And I
Hmm.
think we've discussed that on other podcasts,
Yeah,
that all
we
cause
have.
mortality goes up when people mouth breathe,
Oh,
instead of through their nostrils. It's,
yeah.
yeah, it's just not good for you. But I haven't read the book yet. So
Okay. We'll have to look at that. But in the meantime, you can also listen to our episode on stress.
that's right. That's right. Oh, I had someone tell me the other day, they came in the office, they were so happy. They go, "Oh, I listened to your episode on nightshades." Because then she
Oh,
brought in, she didn't realize that ashwagandha was. So I muscle tested her on that. And of course, she failed. But she just brought it in because she didn't know,
yeah.
because she had been having issues. And so we discussed her taking out potatoes and tomatoes because she eats a lot of them.
Okay.
And so she'd stop for 2 weeks. And then she brought in the ashwagandha. And at that point, right then anyway, her body definitely did not want it.
Yeah, still overloaded. Well, that's cool. Well, thanks for listening to who that was. That's cool. And so, this next bit of information is really interesting because with all the food advertisements, etc., you would think this was wrong, but it's not. They are finding that since we tend to substitute carbohydrates for fats, that actually raises triglyceride levels and may even decrease HDL, which mom just talked about how that's not a good thing. So, keep healthy dietary fat to 25 to 35% of your total diet. And the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute has also suggested that very high intakes of carbohydrates, greater than 60% of total calories, are accompanied by a rise in triglycerides. Lower intakes of carbohydrates, under 50% of calories, should be considered for persons with metabolic syndrome who have elevated triglycerides or low HDL. So, healthy fat is good. I think so many people are just like, oh, fat, run away, run away. So it's actually like the Greek yogurt, it is hard sometimes to find it with the fat just left in, just like the whole milk, like leave it alone because they always try to do the fat free. So,
I always look for the no sugar added.
yes.
And because it still has sugar, because lactose is sugar in
Right.
milk. So they can't
Yeah.
get rid of that.
Milk is
But
sweet. Yeah. It's not
yeah,
like,
it
yeah,
is.
milk isn't. If it's sour, there's probably something wrong.
But the important point here is that fat is not bad,
Yeah.
especially if it's the right kind of fat.
Yeah.
So, and so you definitely want to avoid fried foods, even though trans fats, I think, have been outlawed or banned. But when you use these corn oil and vegetable oils to fry the food, the oil is so rancid, it just causes an inflammatory cascade all over your body. But just eating avocados and nuts and whatever fat is on your meat or butter or whatever, if it's just in the food, that's good. But once you've processed the fat and taken it out and you use it to cook everything, that can probably be a problem. Unless I know saturated fat and avocado oil is stable in high heat. And then if you're going to do olive oil, actually that's best just to put on a salad and not to cook with it, because it's not as stable. It doesn't have a high smoke point.
Yeah. And they even, like, when they make it, it's all cold pressed anyways. Like, they don't.
Well, if you get the right kind. Yeah.
Right.
And
So that's what you should. Yeah. Because it doesn't do well with heat. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have good, like omega-3s, things like that in them. The corn oils and vegetable oils have a really high omega-6 count and to omega-3. And that, though we need omega-6, when you get it that disproportionately, it causes inflammation in the body. So, but we shouldn't be afraid of fat. So, go eat your hard-boiled eggs, your avocados, your nuts, whatever, and stay away from your rice. Dalaney. No, I don't. You stay away from it, but just be mindful that anything that has been processed that much, and especially a carbohydrate, it's going to raise your triglyceride levels. Okay, so let me define, because we just talked about metabolic syndrome, what it is real quick. It is a cluster, and I will say before I say this, they call metabolic syndrome basically type 3 diabetes.
Oh, wow.
And that's what it's known as.
Okay.
But it is a cluster of easily measured metabolic factors which occur together. It occurs when a person has 3 or more of the following 5 factors, whether it's elevated waist circumference, elevated triglycerides, reduced HDL, elevated blood pressure, elevated fasting glucose. So metabolic syndrome develops in the setting of excess calories and a sedentary lifestyle, with underlying causes being obesity and insulin resistance. And most studies show that metabolic syndrome is associated with an approximate doubling of heart disease and stroke risk, and a 5 times greater risk for developing type 2 diabetes. Lifestyle modifications are important to reducing risk from metabolic syndrome, since they improve all of the components of the metabolic syndrome. So again, I think what we're saying, this whole article is talking about, is really, you can change a lot with just lifestyle modifications.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like Mom has found a lot on metabolic syndrome, so I'm sure we will have a episode on that in the future. Am I right?
I think that'd be great.
But we just want you to know that, as dangerous as high triglycerides can be, hopefully we've given you evidence that with diet and lifestyle modifications, you can bring those triglyceride levels down to a healthy range and avoid some serious illnesses in the process.
Yeah. And I think also what I read with this is that people don't quite know where to go with this. If you just look up the dietary guidelines for a Mediterranean diet, that also helps and gets people on the right track.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for listening. And again, we want to hear from you guys. We always want to hear from you guys. Please, please, please reach out to us. And here are just a few ways that you can do that. You can reach out via Instagram and Facebook. Find us at Salty About Health. Even Snapchat at Salty Health. You can email us at saltyabouthealth@gmail.com. Or if you just want to find all that in one place, check out our website, saltyabouthealth.com. We've got all the ways for you to listen and connect there. And finally, if you like what you hear today, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. We really appreciate it. So, Mom, if they want to hear from you on social media, where can they find you?
Okay, I am a certified health coach and I do coach one-on-one. So if you're interested, you can contact me at mary@feedyourselfhealthy.com. I also do research for people who are interested in finding alternative approaches to do in conjunction with the health issue or illness their doctor is treating them for. So again, just reach out to me at mary@feedyourselfhealthy.com.
And if you guys want to find me, I'm not a health coach, but I'm on Instagram hanging out there at Dalaney.a. Find out how to spell my name in the show notes and everything. And of course, I'll be the one mainly keeping an eye on the social media. So always happy to chat with you guys via the Salty Network. Also, just want to shout out our intro and outro music. It is by Yule, and you can find her at www.yulearts.com. That's EULARTS. You can also find her on Instagram at Yule_arts or Spotify and YouTube. Check her out. Her piano music and everything else is amazing. And until next time, stay salty.
Stay salty.